What Your New Year's Resolution Should Be. Originally published Saturday, December 31st, 2016. A common refrain I hear amongst friends, colleagues, and listeners is just how little TV they're consuming nowadays. In part, this is due to digital media consuming a larger percentage of people's free time. In part, it's due to the increasing average age and this maturity of my social and professional networks. And in part, it's due to the lack of creativity and new ideas coming out of Hollywood. But the single largest factor for driving people away from the television, even to the extent of getting rid of it, is the shows are just plain stupid. Be it the Kardashians, daytime soap operas, reality TV, or cookie-cutter sitcoms, television is just not intelligent enough to stimulate the intellects of my audience. And I'm not saying that to kiss up to my audience, I'm saying it because it's true. Television today is painfully stupid to people with above-average IQs. So riddle me this, riddle me that. Why are fans sending me articles from tabloids all the time? At first you may be saying, well, who is actually sending you articles from tabloids? Come on, Cappy. Nobody in your audience was stupid enough to do that. And you're right, they're not. But what they are doing is failing to identify the new tabloids of today for what they are, and therefore failing to identify what is truly news versus what is nothing more than clickbait, propaganda, and the lame personal internet diaries of failed leftist millennials. And everybody who is on the right side of the political spectrum would do well to make it their New Year's resolution to identify it, ignore it, and swear off of it for 2017. For example, what originally put me onto this was the international shit show that occurred when I pinned my Mad Max piece, stating that I wasn't going to see it because it was advertised as a feminist film. The World got its communal panties in a bundle, which earned me an article at the Daily Mail. But what I noticed was just how wrong, erroneous, and false the article was about what I wrote. There was no journalistic integrity whatsoever, which led me to discover, after further research, that the Daily Mail was not a legitimate newspaper, but merely a rank tabloid on par with the Inquirer. Additionally, it's not just the Daily Mail, but nearly all the tabloids ignorant Americans forward because we assume, much like their accents, because it's British, then it must be correct and right. The Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Express, the Sunday Mirror, and the Morning Star. All tabloids, all of which post fake articles like this that are purposely designed to make rightists in the US see red, share the link like wildfire, make it go viral, and make them millions of pounds. Another example is online American-bred gossip columns that you don't have to be a Benedict Cumberbatch-level Sherlock Holmes to figure out are using leftist politics to drive traffic to their sites. Joe Soucheray, a local talk show host here in the Twin Cities, did Vulture.com and its writer, Brian Moylan, a huge favor when he not only read their article about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer being gay, but ranted about it for a full 45 minutes on his talk show. Unwittingly, he helped this trash go viral, earning Vulture additional advertising dollars and Brian Moylan a healthy commission check. But before you tisk-tisk Mr. Soucheray for falling for such an obvious ploy, how many of you forwarded Gawker, Vice, and BuzzFeed articles this year when all it did was benefit leftists like these human rejects? And speaking of human rejects, then there's what I consider the internet diaries of failed leftist millennials. I realize this was a third form of tabloids we non-leftists suffer while listening to a podcast about one Allison Moon. They were reading an article from the other McCain that was highlighting Allison Moon for being nothing more than your average run-of-the-mill feminist. Nothing new was reported, nothing new was gleaned, and all I learned was that there was yet another obscure millennial out there whining about white males. However, it is not so much the sensationalism of the Allison Moons of the world, but that there's so many of them. How many quote-unquote articles have you read from some whiny millennial brat about some insane complaint about the real world, forwarded it to your friends, but can't remember for the life of you the name of the person or what they were complaining about 2 months later? I remember an award-winning journalist in Chicago complaining on her blog that illegal aliens who didn't speak English didn't save up enough for retirement. Another millennial child complaining about how liberal arts degrees were in fact more difficult than STEM. There was Polly Dunning, a feminist-turned mom who regretted having a boy. And how many drama-bitching millennials were writing, quote, articles or putting together, quote, videos about the unfairness of Donald Trump getting elected? The only problem is neither you nor I can remember any of these people because there's a cacophony of them and they get lost in the noise, not to mention the commonness of their whiny, childish, entitled message. And the only reason I remembered Polly Dunning was because somebody just sent me the link to her article, again, benefiting this attention whore. But Polly is precisely the person to make my point, because who is she? She's a nobody. A loser. A nothing. She has only 1,300 Twitter followers, a whopping 900 on YouTube. She majored in English and works in the laughably fake and easy profession of being a teacher. Why in hell's name would anybody listen to this inexperienced, totally common, totally boring leftist millennial? The reason why is that she successfully got her 15 minutes of internet fame, and you will unlikely ever hear from her again. But because there's millions of them, we can expect a new Polly Dunning with some form of outlandish millennial leftist dipshittery to grace the headlines and grab our attention. The truth is, Polly Dunning is the epitome of the third form of fake news, the failed millennial leftist diary. Merely one of millions of failed leftist millennials who cannot accept that, even with their precious liberal arts degrees, they are common, boring, and offer nothing of value to the world. Since they cannot accept this and their ego must be satiated, they go to the internet to journal about their heroic journey or struggle, where they find other sympathetic, self-commiserating failed millennial leftists. But mere commiseration is not enough, so they resort to increasing levels of sensationalism, brown journalism, and radical storytelling to get validation in the form of traffic and likes. Some, like Polly, get lucky and have one article go viral for 15 minutes of internet fame. Some get really lucky and get an unpaid job at the Huffington Post. But they never get more followers, subscribers, or notoriety than a Bernard Chapin, a Robert Stacey McCain, or even myself, because their stories and they themselves are unmentionably common. So my question to all of you is this. How much time did you and millions of other non-leftists waste on these types of stories in 2016? How many of you forward a Daily Mail article, shared a Polly Dunning-like story, or helped make people at Vulture more profitable? By actually believing the gay Rudolph story was real. Additionally, how many years did you lower your life expectancy by getting your blood pressure worked up over these fake and irrelevant articles? How many more minutes of being in a foul mood were you spending when you could have been in a happy one? And did this negatively affect your personal life, be it family, friends, or your profession, making you angry, making you depressed, even losing sleep? And dare I ask, how many of you are addicted to this gossip, who after decades of leftist media and right-wing talk radio have become dependent upon hearing the latest as to how the U.S. is getting screwed in yet another way? I ask you and fellow non-leftists to promise yourselves a change for the better in 2017. I ask that you recognize these new tabloids and news stories for what they are. The neo-internet leftist versions of the Jerry Springer Show. I ask that you do not forward them, do not read them, do not bother with them, and instead spend your time on your family, on your friends, on your loved ones, and on yourselves. I ask that you use them when it comes midterm election time, as these stories do indeed help get conservatives elected, but above all else, for the love of God, if you're going to forward something in 2017, forward this article instead.